Dia great YouTube agus Connor to talk to. Connor Dunner here, back with another YouTube tutorial on Lightroom basics. So when you open up Lightroom originally, you come straight to the library tab. This is where you can import and export all of your folders and your photos. I might actually do a future tutorial on it just to explain how to do it properly. If you don't do it properly, you have folders and photos absolutely everywhere and it's impossible to find stuff sometimes. I've learned from experience to do that. So with that out of the way, let's come over to the develop tab. This is where I do all the messing around with my Instagram pictures and all the pictures I post online. I never use the Instagram filters for the simple fact that they're terrible, and Instagram themselves use Lightroom and programs like Lightroom to make all of their filters. You can actually follow along with this tutorial if you want with your own image. There's the Lightroom app for iOS and Android. It'd be perfect to go along with it, and especially if they have the same effects as well. So with that out of the way as well, let's go jump into the temperature part. So for this scenario, the day I took this on, it was a colder day, so I'm usually going to bring down the temperature. In past pictures, I actually brought up the temperature. It was probably the wrong thing to do. But if you're in a hotter climate, like in the desert or on the beach, you're probably better off bringing it up. It kind of warms up the image. But for this scenario, I'm going to bring it just down a tad bit. Usually I leave tint alone. I don't mess around with tint too much. But for this image in particular, the scene there's a lot of green. It makes the greens pop, so just bring it down just a tad bit. Exposure, this brings up the general brightness of the image. So if I bring it down, too dark. If I bring it up, too bright. So we're just going to leave it just about there. Contrast, if you bring it up, it makes the lights lighter and the darks darker. If you bring it down, it does quite the opposite then, and that's usually what I do with a lot of my images. I just bring it down just a tad bit. Highlights and whites are quite similar. For this image, my sky is quite white, so I want to bring down them whites a good bit. So to see the sky, I'm going to bring down my highlights, and I'm going to do the exact same with my whites. For the shadows in this instance, I'm just going to bring up the shadow just a tad bit, just to make it a little bit more clear to see everything. And the fact that I'm after messing around with all of these and making them very whitewashed, I'm just going to bring down the blacks just a tad bit to add a little bit more contrast. What I mean by contrast, I'm going to just the difference between the blacks and the whites. For clarity, I was talking to a photographer before and he told me never to use clarity, so I use clarity instead now. I just bring it up just a tad bit. If you bring it up too far, it has this stylized effect to the photo. Doesn't look too natural, so I just bring it up just enough to make all the trees really intricate and pop. Vibrance and saturation, they're quite similar. Vibrance, however, though, it picks all the mute colors. What I mean by mute colors is that colors are heading towards white. So the blues here, although they seem white, this kind of blue here as well, and just kind of down here. So you'll see now when I bring this up what them colors turn to. Saturation, what saturation does, it's just the same as vibrance. It brings up the colors and it makes them pop, but except it does it to every color it sees. And usually I bring down the saturation just because it's too in your face and it's not natural. But just for this image, it looks kind of cool. As I go along, I usually use the backslash. But for this instance, just to make the tutorial a little bit slower, I didn't use it. But you can go along, so if I was to change the exposure, usually I kind of flick between the two and see what looks natural. So guys, I hope you liked the tutorial. Like and subscribe and follow me on Instagram. Slán.